Hello, podcasters. I'm out here today talking about the topic self-directed neuroplasticity, epigenetic signatures of the young child, perceptions and connections, and assimilation of anger and shame due to having a learning difference. I would like to talk a little bit about myself because I've had other podcasters reach out and go, well, who are you? How do you know about neuroplasticity and about learning differences? So I can tell you this. After 20 years of being in education, I've provided tutoring, consulting, coaching on dyslexia and other neurodifferences. Over the last 15 years, I've observed a decreasing amount of behavioral, sensorial, cognitive, physical, mental, spiritual difficulties and differences, along with increased number of children being medicated. I had seen over and over the students' behavioral challenges had been undetected learning differences. Therefore, I developed a revolutionary program named ELBERT, which includes the evolution and evaluation of looking at the whole child. I work with stakeholders on constructive engagement when learning is based on the whole child and whole child observations. So this was inspired by Maria Montessori, Benjamin Bloom, Peter Levin, Conrad Eek and Cohen B., Dr. J. Coelho, and Dr. Horwitz, Orton Gillingham, Abraham Maslow, Howard Gardner, Bradley Nelson, Hansberger, Sean Piaget, Grodnick, and Krosky, and Eric Erickson. I've also developed this revolutionary training intervention program for people with unique learning and neurodifferences. This program is a hybrid of elements such as Montessori and Orton Gillingham. It's based off my own inductive reasoning and detective sense, contributed to my own gift of dyslexia. Certifications, credentials, and experiences included countless hours of student observation, educational research, and studies, along with perpetual care for children. So I had mentioned above about I've seen a lot of kids not being diagnosed with learning differences, but they were only recognized for their behavioral challenges. So let me name some of these behavioral challenges that people have labeled, which were again learning differences. They see emotions of anger, frustration, shame, and sadness when it comes to their child's learning, chronic headaches, stomach aches, hives, appearing to have low self-esteem, confidence, squints when reading, feels behind or different than other kids, has behavioral or learning challenges, complains, thrives on constant attention, labeled emotionally intense, gifted, talented, or quite exceptional, has trouble focusing or paying attention, destroys their pencil, eraser, crumbles up their paper after working very hard on something. Problems with organization, complete interest-based learner, grips pencil very hard, has glasses but still complains about not seeing letters or words. Ultra-sensitive, problems with the authority, doodles on paper, problems understanding verbal directions, picks and scratches at their skin and nails, can be needy, clingy, and whiny. These are just few of the behaviors that I have heard parents say and observed myself in the classroom and through my tutoring. So I decided to look into the why. Basically, that's the synonymous why of having dyslexia. So what I found was it's all through the nature and the nurture of the child that we can find the underlying causes of the learning difference. So let's talk about epigenetics as it's related to child development. Epigenetics is an emerging area of scientific research that shows how environmental influences children's experiences actually affect their expression of learning of their genes and learning. During development, the DNA makes up our genes, accumulates chemical markers that determine how much or how little a gene is expressed. This collection of chemical marks is known as epigenome. The different experiences children have rearrange those chemical marks. This explains why genetically identical twins can exhibit different behaviors, skills, health, and achievement, as well as dyslexic attributes and characteristics. This means the old idea of genes are set in stone has been disproven. Nature and nurture is no longer debate. It's always both. As a Montessorian, I've looked at nature and nurture at a 50% rate and through my observational notes. So I'm going to talk about the following. Nature is the adaptation of children responding to the demands of the environment and meet their own goals and functions in a safe, secure way. It's also the organization to integrate particular observations, patterns first, into the body of coherent knowledge. Primarily, it's the basis of a child's need for meaning and motivation. As an underlying factor in all the students that I've taught, I've always found meaning and motivation is number one. They can have all the skill sets, everything they need, but if they don't have meaning and motivation, it's not any good. Lastly, they need to be provided a safe, supported, and healthy and loving environment to prevent kids from learning from primarily either their mental or emotional bodies. Speaking of which, anger and shame, nor solely their etherical body, which is their total body of being both anger and shame. Relative to epigenetics, my specific emphasis in this paper and this program of this podcast is to look at the heart of the child. For instance, anger being replaced with strength, shame being replaced with empathy, and both with love. Therefore, we need to increase the connection, trust, and love for themselves and others. I also touch on safe, positive learning environments, toxicity, and other environmental factors. For instance, you can view some of these at www.myelbert.com. In the field of child psychology, every attitude has three components which are represented in an ABC model. A is for affective, B is for behavioral, C is for cognitive. Although every attitude has these three components, in particular, attitude can be based on one component more than the other, according to study.com. The attitude one has for learning makes or can make or break their learning. The name of the word attitude as it relates to students' learning can give someone negative perspective. Parents ask me all the time, can you help with my child's attitude? And of course, they're talking about their learning. When your child is learning under stress, they're learning from their mental or emotional bodies, primarily with a sympathetic, anger-related, which is hyperprocessing dysfunction, or parasympathetic, shame-related, functional system dysfunction, which is hypoprocessing. Dysfunction of our reticular activation system, known as our RAS, can be talked about more in relation to these system dysfunctions at www.myelbert.com. Specifically, the mental body is the left brain dominant, and they perceive everything related to learning with anger. The emotional body is the right brain dominant, which you perceive everything related to learning and shame. Think about it this way. When your child is hyper or hypo-responsive, they have RSD, their learning decreases due to disconnections with others and themselves. So basically, it's a soul-body disconnection of consciousness. Perceptions of anger and shame, along with assimilation, which gives meaning and motivation for those perceptions. When children have the RDS dysfunction, they can be labeled learning disabled, amongst other labels too. Therefore, they are not learning affectively, cognitively, or behaviorally on a conscious level. With just a sympathetic functional system dominance, they perceive everything again with anger during stress. When they have parasympathetic functional system dominance, they filter and attune themselves with everything with shame. When they have both anger and shame, this total learning system dysfunction creates this complete system soul-body disconnect due to the constant learning, aka cognitive speed shifting, either being hypo or hyper. I understand that hypo, which is the slow speed processing, is the one that's recognized, but you can see both, and sometimes varied, which tires out your brain and your RAS, your rectangular activation system. Much quicker than a balanced learning brain, which in turn this in turn would lessen neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity allows our neurons, which are nerve cells in the brain, to compensate for energy or disease and adjust to activities in response to new situations, new learning skills, and changes in our environment. When our very own DNA predispositions us for learning differences and our own systems have dysfunctions, we actually have a body-soul disconnection, which again is actually due to this function of the rectangular activation system. When a child with a neurodifference is learning something new or stressful, we can observe, again, constant speed shifting. Slow, accelerated, or varied of the prefrontal lobe, frontal lobe, along with the midbrain, left lobe. You'll see them exhibit executive functioning issues with short-term memory problems. Or in the midbrain, right lobe, you'll see emotional disorders with long-term memory problems. We can again attribute this to our RAS, our rectangular activation system, that you can read more about it at www.myelbert.com. So this constant speed shifting or lacking of self-directed neuroplasticity, such as positive attunement and autonomy of beliefs of I am good enough, I am worthy. Also due to not feeling safe and secure in their environment, poor body, sleep, health, diet, wellness, lacking physical activity, dysfunction of the vagus nerve, soul-body connection, sometimes even soul-spirit-body disconnection in older teens. Lacking gratitude, including a heart connection, attunement and mind trust, autonomy, love for self and others, sensory overload, along with constant multitasking, content switching. Especially in our complex, non-connected yet connected world we live in, the neurotoxic and an EMF-infused environment, all increasing our electromagnetism and our vagal tone dysfunctions. Mind you, it's complicated that the spirit, body, soul connection, trust, love connections, constant maladjustments, and the belonging to this world are hard to understand. But that's why I'm here to talk to you about, again, myelbert.com. So I'm going to leave this time open for any questions.
So Tricia, why did you create Elbert?
Okay, that's a great question. Again, it was years of seeing the kids' whole self to be, that they were not getting all their needs met socially, emotionally, physically, spiritually, and I had been taught by Montessori to look at the whole child. And again, seeing kids to be medicated and parents coming to me very upset with that. So I just had to feel like I had to help and figure out again the why behind all of this and what's causing it for the kids to not get their needs met, and why are they having these problems. So I hope you make it for the next podcast. I appreciate everybody tuning in and listening, and I want to say thank you very much.
Thank you, Tricia.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.